welcome to episode 444. I'm Matt, and in this week's show, one airline breaks records buying from the big boys. We talk near misses at JFK Airport, and everyone's favourite airline for a punch-up invests heavily in training. In the military, we take a closer look at what is happening with all these balloons, as well as exploring the new roles the new T-7 Red Hawk jet will take on. Joining me this week on the show, he's literally just arrived. I'm not even joking. He has literally just this second arrived in his home. I'm delighted to say that it gives me great pleasure to welcome Armando. Hello, Armando.
Hello, Matt. Hello, special guest who we haven't introduced yet. Hello, chat room. I see there's some chat room comments about top secret anti-balloon testing. Don't worry, we'll get into it a little bit later in the military.
If in doubt, yes, of course. So as I say, Armando has literally just hot-footed it from a very important business meeting. That's why he's looking all smart and sharp, obviously. Not that he looks like crap the rest of the time, obviously. And joining us also... sorry, am I...
Is it true that you don't wear plaid in London?
I think it's very...
I heard that's a thing, right?
I don't know. I think it depends on which part of London. I mean, if you wore it in Manchester, you'd probably get stuff thrown at you.
Somebody in the chat room that's in the UK, please let me know if it is actually okay to wear plaid to business meetings in London or not, so I don't make that mistake in the future.
Right. Okay. Duly noted. Yes. Also joining us this week, it gives me great pleasure. So welcome back on the show, the legend that is Andy. Hello, Andy.
Hello. Oh, I'm getting legend status now.
Yeah, I know. Well, you've been here more than I have lately. I'm not gonna lie.
I've been in a lot, haven't I? I need to get my medical back so I can go back to work.
All right, no need to be rude.
How are you, Matt?
I'm very, very well, thank you. We're all enjoying a nice beverage this evening, aren't we? Which is quite nice.
Yes.
So it's very much very excited about that. I have to be honest. Andy, what have you been up to? I know you've had sort of quite a lot on your plate lately, and sort of like the talk of getting back in the air is almost upon you.
Yes, so finally after nearly 8 weeks, my balance issues and hearing issues seem to have sorted themselves out, which is great because I'm sick of wandering around feeling like I'm permanently drunk.
I thought that was standard for someone like your good self. You know,
well,
high functioning alcoholic. Obviously, I sort of assumed that.
It's like being drunk but without any of the fun. So what's the point?
Good point. Well made. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's got a lot better now, thankfully. So I'm now in the 28-day wait until I can have my medical back, because I've got to be clear of symptoms for 4 weeks. So that's all booked in, and then I go on holiday for 2 weeks immediately after. But never mind. So I've just been doing my other work for my job, my office part of my job, while I've been grounded. So yeah, nothing new here. Still in the pub, still enjoying life. Glad to be back.
Honestly, it's just like, did you build it during lockdown, or did you have it?
Yes.
Yes. It's just like I need. You've got to have a pub, and you can't be from the north and not have access to a pub at all times.
Is that regionalism?
Yes, very much so. Yes, I apologise for nothing. It is what it is, as I say. And Armando is now here. Now, I say you've come back. I don't suppose you can go into too much detail about what you've been up to, Armando, but you're just back from a very important business meeting.
Oh, it's actually no problem at all.
Awesome.
And actually this kind of goes along with follow-up from last week's episode. So if you have any questions, I know it's a little bit of a convoluted world, the whole charter and corporate, and we were talking about Part 91, Part 135, Part 91K, which is like this mysterious thing that nobody knows about. During the show, if you have questions from last week's episodes, you can send them to the chat room. You can send them to our WhatsApp, which is +44. Help me out, Matt. 7.
Hang on one moment.
Stand by. +44 757
2249166. That's +44 757 2249166. I thought I'd put the graphics back, but I haven't yet because we just reloaded it. So yeah, have to do that from the fly.
It's totally perfectly fine. You can put them in the chat room too.
Yeah.
Or if you're in the podcast family, you can just text them to me.
Yeah.
Because I know it's a little bit of a convoluted. It was great. I had a great time with Stephen and Lieutenant Colonel Jeff, and we could have really gone on for another couple hours. Andy, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to that, but I feel like it's. Did you?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's a.
He's been very busy. He's been very busy in his pub. That's.
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun to talk about this part of aviation that we don't usually talk about. At least really getting into the weeds on what it is, how we approach it from a pilot standpoint, how you can get into it. So if you haven't gotten a chance to listen to it, go back and listen to last week's episode, the corporate aviation special. But specifically, I know there were some questions generated from it, and I think Matt is so good on the buttons that we could probably do. Some audience feedback by the end of the show.
Okay.
And maybe before the military, I can go back and address some of those questions from that corporate aviation special.
Yeah.
But sorry to drone on, but that directly relates to what I was doing today. So I am flying Part 91. Mostly, I've gotten out of on-demand charters, and what I was doing today was there was another Pilatus owner that just bought their airplane. It's a company that just upgraded from a TBM, a Staccato TBM, up to a Pilatus, and there's really only 2 instructors in the area, myself and one other guy, and between the 2 of us, we're really trying to work with these new owners, new operators on mentoring them, and basically they fly with us, we mentor them, and for whether it's 25 hours or 50 hours for whatever the pilot they have on staff, it meets their insurance requirements for instruction in the airplane before those pilots. Even an ATP rated pilot needs to have some kind of mentorship and training into the airplane. So that's what I'm doing mostly, aside from flying the Hawker, is just mentoring these new owners into their new Pilatus aircraft.
Wow,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that sounds very full on. I'm not going to lie, that's incredible. Oh.
It's a great airplane, and it, to be honest, it is a step up for some. If you're coming up from a 206, maybe a Navajo or Chieftain, but for me, I'm so comfortable in the airplane that it's like jumping into a 182 or jumping into a Piper or something like that. I'm so comfortable in the airplane that it's pretty hard to scare me in the airplane, even when I'm sitting in the right seat, and it's great to pass on, now 4 years of knowledge in the airplane onto new operators, new owners. Basically, same thing. You guys are doing as training captains at the airline, but I have a lot more leeway to, come up with a training profile and say, hey, today this is what we're going to do because this is what your areas of improvement are.
That's nice that you can really tailor it like that for them. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if anybody wants to, as Armando was saying there, if anybody wants to, sorry, I'm literally doing this on the fly. I've never done this before, so this could end badly. If anybody would like to get a message in, you can send the number +44 757 2249166. That only works on WhatsApp, I should say. So if you want to send in your questions, you can leave them in the chat room as well. You can pop them in now, and I'll try and sort of like schedule them all for a bit of a discussion later on. But any questions regarding the special that Armando's just been talking about, you can WhatsApp them to +44 757 2249166, or you can pop them into the chat room, and we'll talk about them later on in the show. Well, I love making you work in the middle of the show. Yeah,
something unscripted.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing like keeping me on my toes, is there? Okay, so that's the introductions done. Shall we get into it? We've got a really interesting story to start things off with. And if everybody's ready, let's go, shall we?
Let's do it.
Please turn on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
So we're going to start with Andy. The first story is a big one, and we've got a report that's finally been released literally today.
Yeah, it's the initial report from the Yeti ATR crash, and this is from Flight Global. It says that both Yeti's ATR propellers were feathered just after pilot called for flap extension. Nepalese investigators probing the Yeti Airlines ATR 72 crash at Bukhara have disclosed that both propellers feathered just after the flying pilot asked for further extension of the flaps. The aircraft had been descending to runway 12 following a service from Kathmandu on the 15th of January. Its landing gear was deployed and the flaps set at the 15-degree position before the crew disengaged the autopilot about 720 feet. Some 20 seconds after the flaps were set, the flying pilot, a captain undergoing familiarization with an instructor, called for a further flap extension from 15 degrees to 30 degrees. But although the instructor replied flaps 30, the flight data recorder did not record any movement of the flap surface, states the Nepalese Air Accident Commission in its preliminary findings. The inquiry revealed that instead, the propellers of both engines simultaneously lost rotation speed, the level falling below 25%, and the torque started declining to 0. It says this is consistent with both propellers feathering and no longer generating thrust. The flap setting for the ATR 72 is... the feather setting on the ATR 72 is on the condition lever, which is situated immediately to the left of the flap lever on the throttle quadrant. I believe you've got a picture of that, Matt, as well. Cockpit voice recording information indicates caution chimes sounding in the cockpit. The crew proceeded with the approach, carrying out the before landing checklist and turning left onto the base leg. As the aircraft reached 500 feet, the stabilised height for visual approach, it was banking at 30 degrees. Moments afterwards, a click was heard and the flaps finally extended to the 30-degree position, but only when landing clearance was given a few seconds later did the pilot mention that the engines were not producing power. The throttle levers were advanced initially to the 62-degree position and then to maximum just before the aircraft initiated its final turn at 368 feet. Investigators stated that the pilot handed control to the instructor, again remarking that there was no power, and the stick shaker activated, indicating the risk of a stall. A second stick shaker triggered immediately afterwards and the aircraft banked abruptly to the left, striking the ground 6 seconds later. Unfortunately, everybody on board was killed in that accident. And while the inquiry is yet to reach conclusions, the Commission points out that the ATR 72's propellers can be feathered automatically, although locks prevent dual feathering in such cases, or feathering manually by the crew, normally in the event of an in-flight engine shutdown. No valid data is collected by the flight data recorder once the propeller speed falls below 25%, the inquiry says. So yeah, it's an interesting one. A lot of things happened there.
Yeah, this is really unfortunate, and a lot of questions are going to come up with this, especially the left seat. The left seat pilot, the pilot flying, was a captain upgrade. Having finished, I think she was at the end of her what we would consider an IOE, initial operating experience. So the right seat is a training captain, and I'm looking at the center console of the ATR. Sam Dawson says, it's been 20 years since they flew an ATR, but can't fathom confusing the flaps and the condition levers. I'm looking at the picture here, and I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of pictures actually. Armando, you've just sent me a picture of what, as I say, and Andy sent me an illustration as well. So for people like me, this is really so. I mean, there's a lot about this story that I don't understand, obviously. So let's start with this. So this is the control that if you like, is sort of involved in this incident here. I'm just going to go to like a 2D version of it, which Andy sent me actually. So just in the context of the story that we're going here, Andy, perhaps I could trouble you to just try and, as I say, because I appreciate I don't know a lot about what any of this means. So, if we go through the story, what are these levers in relation to the context of the preliminary findings?
There's 3 levers here that we're interested in. The one on the far right, the flap lever, the white one, and then the 2 to the left of that, numbered 1 and 2, the condition levers. Now here it appears that the condition levers have been moved back into the FTR position, which you can see just below the levers on that picture. instead of the flap lever being moved, this is a different model actually, because that says flap 35, but it should be flap 30. We don't know what...
Same concept, though.
Yeah, we don't know what pressures they were under at the time. Again, this was under instruction, even though a captain upgrade should be less work for the instructor. This was a new airport as well, so maybe they were both unfamiliar with the new airfield, so again, that increased the workload. But again, I've never flown this aircraft type, but they're very close together. Looking at it, the two condition levers together are a similar size to the single flap lever. But I don't know. I don't know if it's human error or if this is a mechanical issue, maintenance issue. But it just shows that even if you try and design everything out of something, you can still fall foul of it.
Yeah, I think human factors are going to be a significant causal factor on this. The flap lever. So this is a pretty standard center console. This is what you would find in a typical 2-engine turboprop, whether it's an ATR, a Dash 8, even a King Air. To be honest, even a smaller light twin, these are the kinds of controls that you would find, Matt, and to everybody that's looking at the picture there. What I don't know, I've never flown an ATR, so I don't know if there's a lift gate for the flap lever, or for that matter, the condition levers. What I can't comprehend is how you could move both condition levers to the feather position, thinking that it is a flap setting.
And is that, as I say again, obviously we shouldn't be speculating or anything like that, but is that because it's essentially two levers versus one, so it would feel very different, or
it's two versus one, and it's also just not the same position. You would think that a training captain and a captain upgrade are used to that muscle memory of where to reach for these kinds of things. So I guess kind of to continue the explanation, what was supposed to happen on this visual approach was that the pilot flying the left seat called for a flap position, for an increased flap position. What was supposed to happen is move the white lever down to the next detent. Instead of that happening, what happened was the two condition levers. So what that's doing is changing the pitch of the propellers from a fine position to a coarse position, or in this case, a feather position. That means if you imagine swimming, right, in a swimming pool, and you have to swim with your palms so they grab water, right? So that's the position of the propellers as they're going through the air. They're trying to grab water. By moving them into the feather position, it is changing the angle of the blades where it is in line with the air, or in this case, it'd be like trying to swim through a swimming pool with both your hands in knife hand position. So you're not actually grabbing any water, therefore you are not going anywhere. You're not propelling yourself forward. That's the same thing that's happening with these propellers, is instead of grabbing the air, they are in a position that is in line with the airflow, therefore they are not making any thrust. So once they pulled those levers back to the feather position and did not recognize the error, because then there was another, after this was going on, the airplane's trying to tell them, hey, I'm not making power, the engines are spooling down. Then there was another movement of the flap position. So now you're in a terrible situation where no matter what you do with the power, with the gas pedal, it's not going to make any power because you're neutral. It's like if you're driving a stick shift or a manual car, you've just put the transmission into neutral by putting those propellers into the feather position. You could slam on the gas all you wanted to. It's not gonna go anywhere because it's not grabbing air. And then by moving the flap lever to a further position of 25 or 30 degrees, whatever they moved it to, it's basically you're on the highway, you're trying to go forward, you're slamming on the gas pedal to try to go forward, but you've put the car into neutral, and at the same time, you've now just hit the brake. So instead of going forward, you are essentially bringing yourself to a halt, which in the air doesn't quite work. So
indeed, like Sam's actually saying, he's saying so they actually went to the fuel shut off position on the condition levers. Basically no power, period, full stop. That's it. Just you're sort of
and they were at 700 feet above the ground, so there was no time to fix
like
the
correct
error.
it, right? Okay, yeah. So you, again, if you did something like this, say for example, as again, I apologise for my naivety here, but again, if you did this at sort of say 15,000 feet, for example, as part of your sort of like, let's say takeoff, because that's what they were doing, you might have more time to discover the error and put it right. But because they were, less than 1,000 feet, basically, your time is very limited.
Yeah, and the thing that gets me with this, it says that the CVR recorded caution chimes sounded. So why wasn't anything done about that? It just seems that they ignored the chimes, which to me at low level, I'd be thinking, ooh, why am I getting these sounds? What's going on?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions with this, isn't it? And I mean,
this is just a preliminary sort of, here's what we know sort of so far. We're still going.
Yeah. I mean, do you think we'll ever really know? I mean, is there enough data recorded to find out exactly what happened?
Yeah, the ATR is just like any other modern aircraft. It has a good set of data parameters that it records. So they will have all the data. The BEA, which the French investigators will be involved as well, because it's a French-built aircraft, and Airbus and Aerospatial will be involved because they own the aircraft type. Yeah. We will find out.
Oh, that's good. That's good. It's a bit of a... Yeah, okay. I mean, we could go on and on, obviously, about this, but we'll perhaps draw a line under it for now, and hopefully we'll get a further update in the coming months, I guess. This is not going to be a quick investigation, is it not, when something like this has happened? But before we move on to the next story, which I think is with Armando, if I remember correctly, I forgot to mention, of course, we are one host missing this evening. Carlos is not here at the moment. He's actually doing the radio at the moment. Some of you, I think, have got Carlos on in the background while he does an 80s show. He has sent me this picture, so he's watching us while he's doing the radio. Bless. So he's doing an 80s show. So if you want to, you can't catch up on PTUK. Sorry, you can catch up on PTUK. You can't on the radio. So if you, I won't be at all offended if you want to go and listen to Carlos. But yeah, anyway, that's why he's not here. That's why he's doing that. He's doing me a big favour, basically. So we thought we'd change it, and I'd be in the studio for a change. There you go.
Well, just to mix the two shows, we should see how many times we can work Cyndi Lauper into this aviation podcast. That's one.
Okay, very good. Yeah, absolutely. If it weren't for the fact that we get a copyright strike for me tuning in to Carlos, then we might listen to a link or two from him. But yeah, there we go. He's also on tomorrow from 10 a.m. By the way, if you're
you do mention it time after time.
We do, yes, absolutely, yes, indeed.
That's two. That's two.
See what you did there? I missed that. Sorry. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Very good. Armando, please rescue us.
From your aviation news source, TheGuardian.com.
Hey. Oh, it's better than the Sun. It's better than the Sun.
Yeah, that's true. Or the Daily Mirror, right?
Yeah.
So Air India has agreed to buy 470 airplanes from manufacturing rivals Airbus and Boeing at the same time. The biggest order of new passenger aircraft in history, as Air India bets that it's on its rapid expansion of air travel in Asia. So the airline, which is owned by Indian conglomerate Tata and Sons, will buy 250 airplanes from Airbus and 220 airplanes from Boeing, according to a statement put out by its chairman last Tuesday. So Airbus is going to deliver 210 of its narrow-body A320 aircraft, 40 of its A350, and Boeing will provide 190 narrow-body 737 MAX jets, plus 20 787 Dreamliners and 10 777 wide-body aircraft. So
wow.
pretty diverse order here. The Air India deals, together thought to be the largest in the industry, are part of a turnaround plan by Tata, which is the owner of car makers Jaguar, Land Rover, and Tetley's Tea. That's a thing, right?
Hello, yeah.
Yeah, so apparently...
I prefer Yorkshire tea myself, but...
the best British quote that I've ever heard is, well, the British Empire wasn't built on Lipton's tea, was it?
No, good point. Yes.
When one asked for Lipton's. Anyways, Tata took control of Air India back in 2022. The airline was actually founded in 1932 as Tata Airlines before it was nationalized in 1953. I actually didn't know that. Now, of course, in recent years, we've talked about it on the show. It fell into some financial difficulties, but these deals were placed. This is a huge deal with support from some of the highest political levels. Indian Prime Minister Modi, French President Emmanuel Macron. They joined the Airbus chief executive and some executives from Boeing, all in this announcement. And even the U.S. President Joe Biden got involved into acknowledging that this order had happened. So
one might go so far as to say that they're showing their true colours.
Oh, yeah. That's three.
I'm sorry.
No, this is great. And specifically to the UK, why this is great, and it's a great deal for the UK industry as well as the US industry. But all the wings for the Airbus aircraft are going to be produced in Wales. So,
oh, wow.
And of course the Trent engines are for the A350 are manufactured by Rolls-Royce and Derby. So very cool. Obviously, Air India sees something, of a rise in travel in Asia. So,
yeah, and as I say, I think the headline that I love the most on this story is to say it's like literally breaking records with the amount of aircraft that they're getting their hands on. Are we surprised? And again, it's the naivety coming out here. Are we surprised that they've opted for both Airbus and Boeing as opposed to like choosing one manufacturer, for example?
I don't see the point in a narrow body fleet of having a mixed fleet, really.
I agree.
When both aircraft, well, one, not the American one, is far more capable than the other.
Right. I mean, obviously there are other airliners available, of course, than just the Airbus that you love so very much.
It just increases costs overall, really.
Yeah, and that's the bit I don't get really, as you say, because it's just let's be honest, we'll use Ryanair as an example, but we can also use EasyJet as an example. I mean, there's a reason why they've chosen one particular manufacturer and variants thereof. Because it's like A319s and A321s and A320s, isn't it? With EasyJet, with Ryanair, it's basically the 737, the two variants thereof. The one, whichever the Max is now called, I get very confused. The Dash 800 or whatever it is.
They call it the Dash 8200
or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. But again, there's a reason why they do that, isn't it? Because it's an abundance of spares at your various maintenance hubs, if you see what I mean. As where if you've got, I can't really, as you say, with a narrow body fleet, I can't see the point in having like some of it which is Boeing, some of it which is Airbus. I mean, Armando, perhaps you can offer a reasonable explanation as to why they're like. I feel almost like they're hedging their bets.
Well, I mean, it is just an order. So 1986, they could just have a change of heart, or as Bill says, such a big order, money changes everything.
True.
That's four Cyndi Lauper references. You're missing them all, Matt.
I know. I'm sorry. Yes, it's a bit embarrassing. I am on the radio, but this is fair, I suppose. But I mean, great news that money is being spent. Let's be honest. To be, especially after like the pandemic and all that kind of thing. It's sort of nice to see things sort of returning back to sort of almost better perhaps than they were before in terms of sort of like flying numbers and stuff. And I know Ryanair are pretty much fully back to their original capacity pre-pandemic. So sort of good news really. Well, and you can use like Emirates for an example as well now. I mean they cancelled like flights into Stansted. They stopped doing those, but they're now looking at doing three a day potentially very, very soon going into Stansted. So everything's all sort of bouncing back. So yeah, not surprised.
Yeah, and Mark in the chat room asked about training issues. There's plenty of airlines that have mixed fleets of Boeing and Airbus. Wow, great timing, Matt. Yeah, it has been done before. You probably, and we actually have a story a little bit later about training facilities. But you do take on an additional risk by having a mixed fleet, both from a training standpoint and from a maintenance standpoint. But they may be, plenty of airlines do it, and it's perfectly normal. Is it the most financial sense? But I don't think they're financial dummies, so there must be a reason. It could be politics, but there must be a reason why they went this path.
Yeah, true. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next story then, and this one's quite a serious one, really. The headline is NTSB subpoenas American crew involved in near collision at JFK. The source on this one is flyingmag.com, and it says on Friday the National Transportation Safety Board subpoenaed 3 American airline pilots involved in last month's near catastrophic runway incursion at New York's JFK Airport. The January 13 incident swept headlines across the country when the American Airlines Boeing 777 crossed an active runway without clearance from air traffic control, causing a Delta Boeing 737 to abort its takeoff. The 2 aircraft narrowly averted disaster, coming within 1,400 feet of each other, slightly more than what was previously reported. While the American Airlines crew complied with written testimony, they refused to be interviewed by investigators as their statements would be recorded for later transcription. According to the NTSB report, investigators attempted to interview the American Airlines crew 3 different times. In its preliminary reports, the investigative agency wrote NTSB has determined that this investigation requires that the flight crew interviews be audio recorded and transcribed by a court reporter to ensure the highest degree of accuracy, completeness and efficiency. As a result of the crew's repeated unwillingness to proceed with a recorded interview, subpoenas for their testimony have been issued. However, the Allied Pilots Association, the APA, the union that represents the American pilots, has backed the crew's decision. APA argued that NTSB interviews have historically been done using a stenographer or with investigators taking their own notes. In a statement, APA wrote, "We join in the goal of creating an accurate record of all interviews conducted in the course of an investigation. However, we firmly believe the introduction of electronic recording devices into witnesses' interviews is more likely to hinder the investigation process than it is to improve it. Not only may the recording of interviews lead to less candid responses from those witnesses who may choose to proceed under such requirements, but the existence and potential availability of interview recordings upon conclusion of an investigation will tend to lead many otherwise willing crew members to elect not to participate in interviews at all. Either outcome would not serve to advance the goal of conducting effective investigations in order to promote aviation safety." The union went on to say that the interviews should be fact-finding and not adversarial. Other findings in the preliminary report stated that the air traffic controller at KJFK was alerted to the American aircraft crossing the wrong runway via a surveillance system, Airport Surface Detection Equipment Model X, that's the ASDE-8, X. The NTSB was able to attain recorded statements by the controllers involved and written testimony from the Delta crew, which the agency deemed sufficient. Unfortunately, cockpit voice recorders from both aircraft involved were overwritten. Oh, that's a bit of a surprise. Following the incident, the American jet continued its route to London, England, and the voice recordings were taped over as the devices typically capture a 2-hour loop. Limitations on the cockpit voice recorders, as demonstrated in the recent JFK incident, has prompted the NTSB to issue recommendations to the FAA. On the 7th of February, the NTSB chair, Jennifer Homendy, addressed the subject during a hearing on the upcoming FAA FAA reauthorization bill. In her testimony, she said, "We issued recommendations to the FAA to address the need to install CVRs with a minimum 25-hour recording capabilities on all newly manufactured airplanes required to have a CVR, and to retrofit these CVRs on existing aircraft required to have flight recorders." American Airlines says it is cooperating with the NTSB investigation. According to the NTSB, the pilots have 7 days to respond to the subpoena. Now, forgive my, again, here comes the naivety. So a subpoena is like a court calling almost. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, sort of part of me is a little bit surprised. I mean, is this? I mean, I sort of feel like recording the interviews. Certainly here, recording interviews has been very commonplace for a very, very long time. Even if there's, especially like if it's a police investigation. In fact, they're almost all recorded, video recorded these days. When any kind of interview under caution, if you like, is taking place. So, is this unusual that? As I say, because I sort of kind of feel like that recording of the interview would have been normal anyway.
I think there's some, in my opinion, beef between the unions and the NTSB here.
Right.
Because I see no reason. In aviation, we work in a just culture, and that means you won't be penalised if you tell the truth, everything that happened, complete error, unless you were negligent.
Right.
And that's the way we're always taught from right from start in aviation. It's all about whatever happens, we need to find out what happens, because then we can stop it happening again. And these interviews are key to that. And I really don't understand what difference it makes between being written down, recorded, videoed, audio. I don't see what the difference is if they just tell their side of the story and just let the investigators get on with it. But I don't know how it works in the States when it comes to that. Unfortunately, we've got somebody who does.
Yeah.
Well, so a union, and to be clear, the union is the Allied Pilots Association, APA, that represents American Airlines pilots. The union has a duty to protect the pilots to the utmost extent, and they will take. If you think about it almost as a defense lawyer, right? So, and a lot of this process was dramatized in the Sully movie, right? The Miracle on the Hudson, where they showed this really adversarial, controversial hearing between the pilots and the NTSB. And it's not really like that. I guess it could have an air of adversity to it, but the union's job is to protect the pilots to the maximum extent. If they have the ability to negotiate something like this, where for the protection of the pilots, if you don't want to do a recorded interview, because nowadays, right, everything's going to get out. With social media, with the way the news cycle, everything. So the least amount of damage that they can get away with would be just a written interview, a transcribed interview with the pilots. I think that's a pilot protection thing. We've talked about what happened. We kind of know what happened already. Everybody that's a professional aviator, I think, understands how this could go wrong and how they ended up there. Sure, we can sit here in our seats and say, oh my gosh, how could they possibly let this happen? But true accidents do happen. And that's what happened here. Whether there was some negligence, there was some faulty training, maybe there was some inappropriate procedures in the cockpit at the time. That's the kind of stuff that they're going to get to. But like John Jester saying in the chat room, the union's purpose is to protect the pilots. Now, the problem that I have with this is the optics, right? So they are the optics of this, and armchair quarterbacks and people just on Facebook are going to be like, just own up to it, right? Yeah. And why aren't they just coming out and saying it was mea culpa? Well, that's just not the case, right? If you didn't have to do that, we have a due process here in the industry, just as we do in the court systems, where you're gonna try to defend yourself until it's proven that there was something negligent, if anything. But yeah, and again, another comment from John. John really is closer to this than I am, because I have never flown at a 121 airline with a union, but he says that there's a high probability of legal action, that the pilots could be sued, and then there's this ASAP process, which is a safety program where they may have to be processing all of the information before the interviews happen, and they're trying to get all their ducks in a row. But I think with the media exposure, there's an extra pressure to get an answer to this, when the union's probably trying to slow everything down. So
yeah, we're very lucky that this isn't a more serious incident. I mean, I know it's a serious incident, but potentially many lives could have been lost as a result of this incident. So I guess, every cloud, I guess, and the important thing is of course, because of the processes in place, things will be learnt from this. So, it's, fortunately it's had a positive outcome, if you like. Nobody's lost their life, and lessons will be learned.
Yeah, but the chat room, I think I agree with the chat room. The media, it's so fresh in everybody's mind that we want justice now. This kind of stuff takes time to process.
Absolutely.
We have to slow the process down. Were the pilots at fault? Maybe, but you still have to give them the chance to defend themselves. Give the chance to the NTSB to investigate and really come up with a cause and a recommendation before you can really prosecute somebody. So while I don't agree with the optics, I do agree with the whole slow everything down. Let's figure out what happened.
Do it right.
Yeah.
Because you only really get one chance at this, don't you? Because
correct.
If you put out the wrong information, people will lose their livelihoods and their careers off the back of it. And if they're at fault, that's completely right, obviously. But
as much as we love all of this flight tracking software, this is another side of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been so widely known if.
Yeah.
I won't name any particular companies, but we all know them. It's got its time and its place, but like you say, Armando, everybody just wants answers now, and they want justice now. It's like this stuff takes a long time to work through.
It does.
Yeah, and if we didn't have the media, then you don't know. Yeah. Sisters of Avalon, 1996. Cyndi Lauper.
He's good at this. Right, let's move on then. I can't believe we're only on story number 4. Andy, you're up next.
Yes, here we go. This is Virgin Atlantic suspends services to Pakistan. So Virgin Atlantic, a popular UK-based airline, has announced the suspension of its services to Pakistan due to ongoing concerns about the country's aviation safety. The decision, which was made after a thorough review of the airline's operations in the country, comes as disappointment to many travellers. The airline has been operating flights between Heathrow and Islamabad since December 2020 after a 13-year hiatus from the market. The move was widely seen as a sign of confidence in Pakistan's aviation industry and the country's economic potential. However, Virgin Atlantic's decision to suspend services comes after the UK Civil Aviation Authority, the CAA, raised concerns about Pakistan's aviation safety standards. The CAA issued a NOTAM in early February 2023 advising UK airlines to avoid flying in and out of certain airports in Pakistan due to safety concerns. Virgin Atlantic has stated that the safety and security of its customers and crew are of paramount importance, and the decision to suspend services to Pakistan was made after a thorough review of the situation and consultation with relevant authorities. The suspension of Virgin Atlantic's service to Pakistan is likely to have an impact on the country's tourism industry and its overall economic growth. Pakistan has been working to promote itself as a tourist destination in recent years, and the resumption of flights by major airlines like Virgin was seen as a positive step in this direction. The Pakistani government has expressed disappointment at Virgin Atlantic's decision to suspend service to the country and has pledged to work with the airline and other international carriers to address the safety concerns raised by the CAA. So yeah, there are still other airlines flying there, such as Pakistan International Airlines, British Airways and Emirates, and they all continue to operate their services to Pakistan.
So what do we think? What do we think's behind the decision for them to do that, though? I mean, as you say, if other airlines, and let's be honest, BA can be a little bit nervous, shall we say, and will pull a route with little explanation. I mean, are Virgin Atlantic onto something?
Who knows? Was it making money?
Possibly, yeah, that's true. That is true. Armando, any thoughts?
I mean, I've flown, I'm not equating it to Africa, but I've flown into some areas where the radar service wasn't entirely 100% all the time, where air traffic control, questionable training and procedures there. So it could be a money thing. It could be a no kidding money versus risk. Is it just too risky to operate in there at the time? Maybe they're seeing some trends. Maybe they've had previous reporting or previous experiences where it's just not, the money's not worth the risk to them, because as we know, one aircraft mishap can significantly affect not just lives, but the airline and the industry.
Oh yeah, one hull loss, that's it. You could sink the entire airline. Virgin's a pretty small airline overall.
It is, yeah, certainly in comparison to, the sort of, people like Emirates and BA and that kind of thing, yeah. Very true. Very true. So we'll move on to the next story, and Armando, it's with you.
Yeah, this is from thebusinessdesk.com. Leisure airline Jet2, which we love. We talked about them on the show quite a bit. They've opened a new £8.5 million training center in Cheadle. Is that how it's pronounced? Cheadle?
Cheadle, yep.
Yep, near Manchester. So the new center builds on the success of the Leeds-based company's first training center near Bradford, which opened in 2014. And in addition to creating about a dozen full-time positions, the new purpose-built training center enables Jet2 to underpin its growth ambitions by training thousands of its employees every year. Now, the state-of-the-art center is going to provide a bespoke center of excellence for new and current pilots, engineers, cabin crew, and ground operations colleagues. The three-story facility is going to house full and fixed-base flight simulators, cabin crew trainer units, engineering training devices to enact real-life scenarios, high-tech computer-based training rooms. Oh, we love those. Fully equipped classrooms and briefing rooms. And, of course, the leisure travel group, which encompasses Jet2 and Jet2 Holidays, has outlined its plans to grow sustainably and expand its fleet in line with the demand for package holidays and flights, just like we were talking about this growth in the aviation industry post-COVID pandemic. The group has an order for 98 Airbuses, A320s, A321s, which could eventually extend up to 146 aircraft. So an order for 146. Obviously, they're very excited about it, and their CEO put out a statement. But these training facilities, anybody that has an opportunity to visit one of these, it's such an amazing thing. And Andy, I don't know what your airline's training facilities I like, but for an av geek, you can totally nerd out over these training facilities. The full motion simulators, which we've talked about, the fixed base simulators. But even the cabin crew simulators with the life rafts deployed, the ability to recreate fire, smoke, and fumes inside the cabins, unruly passengers. They train for all these things, and its facilities are really, really, really impressive. Really, I would love to do a tour of any of these airlines.
Do you know, I would absolutely love something like that. As I say, even as a sort of like a very mild geek in comparison to a lot of the people both listening and on the show. I appreciate I'm the anomaly here, but even I would find that absolutely fascinating because people sort of forget how much training is involved in doing these things. And I don't mean this in a derogatory term, but even like in terms of what the cabin crew have to do. I mean, you sort of like, I thought we've said this before, haven't we? It's like, I mean, they're not there to serve you drinks and all that kind of thing. Their role is key in your safety. And that there might be a small part which involves doling stuff out of a trolley, but the rest of it is all about making sure that the cabin is secure, looking after you, making sure you're safe, taking care of you if something goes wrong, and on all this kind of thing. And as you say, the training regimes and stuff that they go through, and these simulators that we're referring to here, I would love to get a tour of something like that. It'd be just so cool.
Well, I've actually been in that building because the story's not quite true. That used to be a sim centre beforehand. That picture that you put up had a different simulator in that bay, and I flew that many times.
Oh!
Yeah, it used to be a CAE's sim centre. They used to have a BAE 146 there and a 757.
Oh, wow,
and
okay.
A couple of A320s, yeah. So Jet 2 took it over after CAE pulled out during the pandemic because we used to go there. It used to be great. He was round the corner from work. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I bet.
So would you call it just lies?
Not lies.
1993. Hat full of stars.
Very good, very good.
He's too good at this game, isn't he?
I just hope they have a change of heart about it.
Oh, forgot. Right, okay, we're moving on to the next story then. And the headline is Airline Passenger Praised for Refusing to Give Up Special Seat to Couple.
Well, this wasn't Nev, was it?
Probably, yeah, absolutely. EdinburghLive.co.uk is the source on this one. An airline passenger has been met with near universal praise after opting to turn down a request to swap with an elderly couple. The flyer had paid extra money for legroom on the long-haul flight when he was asked to switch with the pair, to which he said no. The man took to Reddit, where he was applauded for his move, and my screen is just frozen. That's always very helpful, isn't it? During the 12-hour flight, the man admitted to receiving evil glares from passengers after refusing to move from the seat he paid for, reports The Mirror. Oh, well, that's good news, isn't it? Captioning the post, the Reddit user wrote, "Old couple tried to take seats on a plane." The man explained, "Saw a few plane seat related posts, so I thought I would add my story. A few years ago, my significant other and I planned a 3-month trip around the world. Our first flight was from New Zealand, LA, so it was 12 to 13 hours. We booked and paid for our flights and added the premium economy seats as I was 6'3" and wanted the extra legroom. Cost an extra $60, that's £50. We get on the plane, find our seats, and there is an older couple sitting there, mid-70s. I asked them if they got confused with their seat numbers. They hadn't. I show them my ticket and seat number and point to the name on the screen. They then asked me to just sit in their seat, which were 10 rows back with no legroom. After the elderly couple refused to move from their seats, the man demanded that they return to their original seats as he had paid extra. The man added, "I got some evil eyes from other people on the flight. I paid for extra legroom and I needed it." Flocking to the comments section, Reddit users shared their opinions about the controversial ordeal. One person wrote, "I have no idea why other people who paid extra for legroom would glare at this guy." Meanwhile, someone else said, "There isn't a 2-hour flight where you buck up for the good of old people," which is not right given the social experience that is flying. I wouldn't care if it was a 2-hour flight, and there is still the principle of the matter, but I may cave depending on my mood. 12 to 13 hours is no joke. There is no giving in. You move these people or the plane doesn't take off, they added. Now that's interesting. So I'm going to throw the question out to both of you. Andy, if you were in that situation, I know you're not 6'2", but you're not short, and you paid for extra leg room, and somebody else was sitting in those seats that you paid extra money for. I realise you're from the north, so I think I know what's coming. What would you do in that situation?
Well, I'm only 2 inches shorter than that, and I'd kick him out of the seat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
I've paid my money.
Yeah.
Just don't try and chance it. It's not your seat. If you wanted a seat, pay for it.
Well, exactly, and especially as it sounds like there was like sort of name boards with their name on it. Now, I'm not quite sure where we're going to go with this one because Armando is the nicest human being I think I've ever met. So, in this scenario, what would you do?
While I am always as nice as I can be,
Respectful of one elders and all that kind of thing.
For a 12 to 13 hour flight from New Zealand to LA, if I paid, whether it was $60 or £50 or £100, I think I would respectfully ask that couple to tap into their unconditional love and move to their original seats because I paid for it.
Yeah, that's true.
I've changed my mind. I would give them those seats if I was given an upgrade.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
I'll take the upgrade and they can keep those seats. But if you're not going to give me an upgrade, get yourself back down the back.
Is that? I mean, I know some airlines gives that kind of latitude to the cabin crew. I guess that would depend on the airline whether they can do that.
Well, and capacity, I suppose, as well. They may not have had room to sort of move someone else there. But I must admit, I don't know. I mean, it's just like I'm the first one. Like, if it looks like you've more or less boarded and they're starting to shut the doors. Do you know what I mean? While they're sort of busy faffing around doing all their safety things that I don't understand, I would. If there were better seats a little bit further away from me or whatever, once we were all loaded and the doors were shut, I would probably ask the cabin crew if it would be all right if I moved to a seat that had got slightly better legroom. Once you're loaded, and it's apparent that nobody else is there. But I don't think I would be so bold as to literally sit in someone else's seats and then say, well, why don't you go to my seat 10 rows back?
Yeah, listen, I'm all about pity and respecting elders and stuff, but not all old people are senile, right? Like they may have known what they were doing. Yeah, I personally can't wait to be 80 years old and do whatever I want. I want to go out in nothing but a trench coat and yell at kids, right? Like I want to sit on my front porch and just yell at cars driving too fast.
Wait yourself and not ask any questions. Or
yeah, I do that now.
Oh, right, okay. What, wait yourself? Or that?
I'm semi-retired.
Love it.
Yeah, man, I don't know. They
were obviously trying it on, weren't they? I mean, there's no two way about it. But it's like, it's one of those, isn't it? It's a fair cop, Gov. If the owner of the seat comes and say, and they don't say, oh, that's all right, you stay there, I'll go. If they say, can I sit in my seat, please? I'm 6'2".
It doesn't matter about it. You have that seat on your ticket.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, presumably he will have been 100% supported by the cabin crew on this.
Well, and you could always put a safety spin on it. It'd be like, look, if something actually happens to this aircraft, I want to be in my seat so my family know it was me. Don't you want to be in yours so you can be identified?
Oh,
wow!
Oh, I love that. Stick that in the repertoire, everyone. I think we've all.
Micah just said the exact same thing in the chat room, and I beat him to it by about 10 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Yeah, absolutely. No, that is great news. So yeah, I think it's more or less unanimous. I think we would be telling them to bugger off, frankly, and go and sit in their proper seats. I think that's what we would be doing. I've just realised drinking and me is not a good idea. Who knows what could happen before the end of the show?
Well, listen, this next story is it's not even a Cyndi Lauper quote. Absolutely miraculous. So, Andy, you've got this next one.
Yeah, so this is from the independent.co.uk. Pilots miraculously walk away unharmed after Boeing 737 crash in Western Australia. I was flabbergasted when I saw this. A flight crew has walked away with only minor injuries after a Boeing 737 crashed in Australia on Monday, with one aviation analyst calling it simply amazing. The emergency services aircraft had been tackling wildfires in Fitzgerald's River National Park outside Perth when it was downed in the area. It makes it sound like it was shot down, doesn't it?
It does.
Flight November 619 Sierra Whiskey, operated by aerial firefighting company Coulson Aviation, had taken off from Busselton Airport at 3:32 p.m. when the crash occurred less than an hour later. The reason for the crash is still unclear at present. In a statement, Coulson Aviation said both pilots had walked away from the accident before being medically assessed. There were no other crew members on board. The aircraft had 2 on board at the time of the accident, and both pilots walked away from the accident and have been medically assessed. Our thoughts and our immediate concern is for those team members and their families. We are very grateful to the 2 team members of Tanker 139 that they are safe. We are offering all the support we can to our local and international crews. We are also grateful for the support being provided by our firefighting and aviation industry colleagues in Western Australia. I think that was a statement from Western Australian Police. Again, it just reiterates that they were retrieved from the crash site by helicopter and were taken to hospital. According to Flight Radar 24, the plane had climbed to 29,000 feet after takeoff and then descended to about 700 feet as usual in order to douse the bushfires before it got into trouble. Again, talking about it was simply amazing. The fact that the 2 pilots walked away from the accident is simply amazing, considering all of those circumstances. And the ATSB are conducting investigations into the crash. It is phenomenal that a 737 passenger airline essentially has crashed and people have walked away from it.
I can't get my head around that. That's incredible.
Unscathed,
very,
too.
very lucky.
And looking at the the photographs here. I mean, I've got 2 photographs of the actual crash site. I mean, admittedly, obviously, this is obviously post-fire, isn't it? I mean, because there was obviously a fire when you know, and so I mean, this is not the state it was when they were escaping the aircraft. Obviously, this is post-fire, but even so, for both crew members to just walk away from that, I mean, that is just, I mean, is it because they managed to get it down fairly gently, I guess, and
well, it looks like the tail's broken. If you look at that picture that you've got up there, where it's just lying there, the tail is at a slightly jaunty angle to the rest of the body.
True.
It looks like it's come down pretty flat and just taken the tail off.
Right.
But who knows? I mean, to drop from 700 feet is not that far either.
No, I guess.
And we don't know the speed at which they were going. They may have just dropped. They may have been light. They may have been able to fly it essentially into the ground, right? I mean, we're kind of trained to do that. We certainly don't train for controlled flight into terrain, but this is part of the hazard. I'm sure these guys are very, very well trained, very experienced in what they do, and whatever it is that happened in this situation, I would like to think that they flew it to the ground, tried to make a low energy impact, and I couldn't believe it when I saw this happen, and I saw a video of them just walking out of the ambulance, walking themselves, not a scratch on them, into the emergency room, was just amazing to me. I mean, both of these guys are, I'm sure, singing "I'm Gonna Be Strong."
Yeah, I would like to think that both of them went away and did the lottery as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing, yeah.
Because that is beyond incredible. By the way, I didn't mention, of course, we haven't got Nev with us this week either. I've just received this picture. This is from Seat 1A on the A321, where he's repositioning for the next part of his trip while he's in the States. He did tell me earlier where he was going, but I've forgotten. You may be able to find it, Armando. But
I think he was going from Dallas out west somewhere.
Yeah,
but I'd like to see that he's on American Airlines.
Absolutely, yeah. He's on American Airlines, and he's got, as I say, plenty of leg room there. I think he'll be all right, won't he? Yeah, I don't think he'd have had people sitting in his seat incorrectly.
I think 1A on an American A321 is not the same as 1A on a BA aircraft, but he'll survive, I'm sure.
Yeah, he'll soldier on, no doubt. Yeah, love it.
He'll still get some food. Maybe I can't wait to hear his experience on the food creed. It's not caviar by any means, but actually, I will say American Airlines does have some really good meals. I just recently I got upgraded, and it was a really nice like smoked salmon carpaccio type thing on first class. So.
Nice.
I will say it's not BA, but it's not terrible.
Okay, we'll move on to the next story then. I'll take this one if that's okay with everyone. And it is Flight Global is where this one's come from. It's FedEx and Southwest jets involved in a close call at Austin. It's obviously one of those shows today, isn't it? US aviation authorities are investigating an investigation in Austin on the 4th of February involving a Southwest Airlines jet being cleared for takeoff as a FedEx cargo. Now, I actually heard the audio on this one. In fact, I think, is it the audio that we've got on this? Let me have a quick look, because we might use that for telling the story. Yes, it is. It's the audio we've got on this. The FedEx Boeing 767-300ER freighter descended as low as 150 feet before breaking off its approach due to traffic on the runway, according to the Federal Aviation Administration and flight data from FlightAware. A Boeing 767 cargo plane operated by FedEx discontinued its landing Saturday at Austin, Bergstrom International Airport after an air traffic controller cleared a Boeing 737 operated by Southwest Airlines to depart ahead of the FedEx airplane, the FAA says. The incident comes several weeks after a serious similar event involving two jets at New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport, as we mentioned earlier. The latest incident involves FedEx Flight 1432, a 767 with registration November 297 Foxtrot Echo, and Southwest Flight 708, which was a 737-700 registered November 7827 Alpha, according to Flight Radar 24 and the FAA. The FedEx jet took off from Memphis that morning at around 6:21 Eastern US time and flew the roughly 486 nautical miles, that's 900 kilometers, to Memphis, flight tracking data shows. At around 6:40 Central US time, when the FedEx freighter was several miles from Austin's airport, controllers cleared its pilots to land on Austin's runway 18 left, the FAA says. Shortly before the FedEx aircraft was due to land, the controller cleared Southwest Flight 708 to depart from the same runway, the FAA says. The pilot of the FedEx airplane discontinued the landing and initiated a climb out. The Southwest aircraft was operating a flight to Cancun. When clearing the Southwest pilots to take off, a controller notified them of an inbound 767, saying traffic 3 mile final is a heavy 767, according to an audio recording of radio communications available at liveatc.net. The 767 pilots then asked again for confirmation to land, which a controller granted while notifying them of traffic from the departing 737. Southwest abort, someone says. The Southwest 737 took off safely, according to the FAA. The agency says it is investigating. FedEx Express Flight 1432 from Memphis to Austin, Texas, safely landed after encountering an event just before landing at Austin Bergstrom International Airport Saturday morning, FedEx tells Flight Global. As this is an active investigation, please refer your questions to the FAA and the NTSB. Neither Southwest nor the National Transportation Safety Board immediately responded to requests for comment. On the 13th of January at JFK, a Delta Airlines 737 aborted its takeoff after an American Airlines 777 was crossing the same runway. The FAA and the NTSB said that they were investigating that event also. So I've got some audio here. It's about a minute and a half long. I don't know. We'll have a listen and see what we can find from this. Perhaps, guys, you could sort of comment a little bit on this as we play it out.
Approach FedEx 1432 Heavy, passing 17,000, descending via the Susie, landing south with Juliet.
FedEx 1432 Heavy, Austin approach, expecting a 18 left. We're showing quarter mile visibility. 18 left RBF, touchdown 2,400, midpoint 800.
So explain to me what this is. Is this they're just sort of like setting up their approach?
Yep, and he's telling them what the visibility is at on the runway.
FedEx 1432 Heavy, what do you need for RTI values?
We'll plan on flying the Cat 3, so we've got it.
So what's a Cat 3?
Cat 3's type of approach, Cat 1's normal, Cat 2's lower minima again, Cat 3's basically down to zero visibility.
Oh.
FedEx 1432 Heavy, you can depart Jedi, direct R2, cleared ILS, 18 left approach.
Direct Jedi, direct R2, cleared the ILS 18 left, FedEx 1432 Heavy.
So, what's the... Oh.
X1432 Heavy, contact tower on 121.0. Current RVR is touchdown 1,400, midpoint 600, roll out 1,800.
That's not bad. Is that in meters still?
No, it's in feet.
In feet? Oh my God, what is wrong with you?
So that's the ATC conversation that was taking place there. You could hear just at the end there, as I say, there you could hear the shout out for abort there.
Okay, well, is the audio done for now?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're going to approach this probably from two different standpoints between U.S. procedures and European procedures. Mostly because this would not have happened in Europe, based on my understanding. But I'll let Andy talk to that. Here in the U.S., it is common practice to clear an aircraft for landing when the runway is still occupied. It is also common practice to clear multiple aircraft for landing on the same runway where they are in trail of each other. Sometimes 2, maybe 3 aircraft have been cleared for landing. You've heard the words "cleared to land, runway 18 left, 18 right," whatever. And in between those arrivals, you are going to have departing aircraft that are cleared for takeoff. So at any given point, you may have 3 aircraft cleared for landing and 1 aircraft taking off and another one lining up to take off. So it is common practice. Now those separation minima go up, they increase when there is reduced visibility, such as was this. So this is 1,200 feet runway visual range, runway visibility reporting is not very much, right? So you're talking less than a quarter of a mile. And when you're doing 120, 130 miles per hour, that goes pretty quick. And there was a sort of another Swiss cheese. We always talk about the Swiss cheese model when the holes line up in the Swiss cheese. But there was a series of errors that happened here, and I will preempt this by saying the entire industry has already acknowledged that the FedEx pilots, the FedEx crew, get the gold star and they get the save for the day in this situation.
Right.
So the Southwest aircraft was cleared for takeoff on this runway, and they were advised there is traffic on a 3-mile final. Now, remember that with a quarter-mile visibility, the tower cannot see the runway. They can't see the aircraft taxiing out to the runway. Southwest can't see the traffic on final, and FedEx can't see Southwest. Nobody can see anything. Everybody just sees a gray outside their window. And the Southwest crew, for whatever reason, delayed. Once they were cleared to take the runway, it was almost a minute before they started their roll. And again, the tower cannot see this. They can't see. So because there's a sequence of events that you get used to, of maybe a radio call from the tower to Southwest saying, hey, contact departure after they take off, it is possible that the FedEx crew, having not heard that call when it was expected, they questioned, hey, are we cleared to land still? Because they haven't heard Southwest get on the roll. The tower says, yes, you are cleared to land. Then they say, Southwest, are you going yet? And then they say, we're rolling. Right. So there's this little time lapse that has happened. In the meantime, and we don't know, somebody in the chat room brought up the synthetic vision or the heads-up display capability of the FedEx planes that is standard in all their aircraft. They may have been able to see the target on the runway. But either way, whatever happened, the FedEx crew took control of the situation and called for a reject. Was that the right thing to do? Called to the Southwest aircraft to reject their takeoff. You can say that, but if they're past their V1 point, that they're not going to be able to. But yeah, and the FedEx crew took control of the whole situation. They called the reject. They called their own go around, In the meantime, Southwest was already rolling down the runway. They're both climbing out. There was it's fortunate that the FedEx was at the end of their flight, so they were lighter. They could outclimb the Southwest that was coming up at them, and that's how this whole situation, how a crash was averted. John Jester brought up the ILS critical area on this runway at Austin. The ILS critical area is on the other side of the runway, so that all the ILS antennas were on the east side. They were on the west side of the runway, so that wasn't a factor. There is no ILS hold or critical area, and what that means is there's a little bit extra room at the end of the runway when it's low visibility like this that you can't drive your aircraft. You can't taxi your aircraft into because it interferes with the signals. It could of the instrument landing system. In this particular situation, the ILS equipment was on the other side of the runway.
So Aaron P's just asking a question while we're talking about Southwest here. He's saying, would Southwest would have had to perform an engine run-up due to the ice before takeoff?
It depends what the temperature was. And if they did have to do that, then they should have informed ATC that they were doing it. Because it can be up to 30 seconds of around 70% power before you then release and go for takeoff thrust. Especially if, I don't know how it works in the States, we've got rid of the calls in Europe now because of ground movement radars for entering the runway, rolling and airborne. I don't know if you still have to do that in the States or not. But I think what the point John Jester was making there as well, Armando, was that actually keeping the runway clear. That is critical for an autoland because the aircraft will interfere with the ILS regardless of where the antennas are. The aircraft on the runway.
Yeah, that's true. This whole situation, I don't know what the temperature was. I don't know if they had to do a run-up. There was a missed opportunity for the air traffic controller to say no delay. You're clear for takeoff, no delay.
But again, this is low vis. You can't be telling people no delay. In low vis, everything needs to go at a slow pace. And the flow rate is reduced, or should be.
Yeah, it should have been. Yeah.
To me, it's madness that they cleared them to land with an aircraft on the runway. In general, anyway. The only place I know where I fly to where we get cleared to land with another aircraft in front of us coming to land is Charles de Gaulle, but that's because they use separate runways for landing and takeoff. So they just clear everybody to land.
Right, yeah.
Like 20 miles out, but if you see the aircraft in front lands and doesn't get off the runway, then you go around. But everywhere else in Europe, that would just not happen on single runway operation. So, did these guys in Austin were they still in the world of it's normal operations, we'll just clear them to land? I don't know. I don't know how it works.
So, I mean, yeah. Mark is asking an interesting question, which I must admit is one of the ones that's going through my mind here. He's saying, what are the chances of this happening again?
Well, hopefully a lot less now. It's been
highlighted.
Attention. Yeah. And surely, especially at that airfield, they'll be looking at their operations in ATC and going, right, we need to change this.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat room brought up how often does Austin deal with these kinds of conditions. I did find the weather for that situation was winds calm, visibility was 1/8 of a mile, runway 36 RVR was 1800, variable 2400, freezing fog, vertical visibility 200, temperature was -1, dew point -1. So it was certainly freezing conditions.
They'll definitely be doing a run-up then.
Yeah.
They'll have 100% done a run-up on the 7.3. That's why it took so long to roll.
There you go. So the government has already come out and said they are forming a committee after these multiple close calls that we've had, and they will study this and what happened. And so the answer to Mark's question is like Andy said, hopefully less. Now that it's, but that's how we end up with all our rules, right?
Yeah,
like all our procedures. In the Air Force, we used to say that our regulations are written in blood. That's something that I used to teach to our young aviators.
Gosh, yeah,
it's really good that the FedEx decided to go around. Even if ATC had told them to go around at low level, they still have a lot more inertia and energy than the aircraft on the runway, so they will have climbed out a lot quicker regardless of the weight anyway. and especially in the UK, I spoke to an air traffic control at Manchester about this. The aircraft above, they'd have just let them carry on the missed approach because that's been planned for. They've already talked about it. Whereas the aircraft underneath is the one that they'd have just got to immediately turn in another direction.
Yeah, and that is what happened. The FedEx crew recognized the situation and was able to execute their missed approach.
Sam Dawson mentions about land after in the UK earlier on the messages. I have heard that as well. Again, that is only used in sort of VMC conditions and when it's getting tight. I've heard it in Manchester a few times. If there's an aircraft rolling on the runway, we sometimes get told you clear land after that aircraft. So it's a conditional landing clearance,
right?
Which again, I'm not a big fan of, but if it works, it works.
I mean, these are.
We don't have that.
I guess the bit that makes me nervous about all this is that these are big aircraft that we're dealing with here. These aren't little Cessna 150s that are just popping around, not using a lot of space. Do you know what I mean? And that's what's making me nervous about all of this is the size of these aircraft. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here when I say, especially when you're sort of coming into land and that your visibility is not perhaps what you'd like it to be. I mean, all right, okay, Concorde is an unusual example, but of course when you're coming into land, essentially you are coming into land like that, aren't you? You sort of like, your nose is essentially up in the air, isn't it, as you're sort of dropping to come down. So your immediate visibility to what's on the runway may not necessarily be fantastically clear.
Well, the aircraft's designed so that you can see at landing attitude.
Okay.
See very clearly at landing attitude.
Right.
And actually, it's also designed as well for low-vis operations more than anything.
Okay.
Your seating position is designed so that you can see a 90-metre segment in front of you on the runway.
Right.
So it is all carefully thought of during the design process. Because, well, next time you look at a picture of a flight deck or anything like that, you'll notice there's a couple of balls in the centre pillar. White ones, red ones, might be black and white on the aircraft, and they're designed to set your eye height.
Okay.
So when you adjust the seat, you cover one of the balls with the other one. This is particularly in the Airbus family as well. I can't remember on the 737.
Been a
so
while.
that when your eyes, when the white ball's covering the red ball, you're at the correct height to look down over the combing glare shield to see the correct segment.
Okay.
I don't know about the Hawker and stuff like that.
I mean, is it similar?
Yeah, we've got the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, I'm just looking up the plate, the Cat 2, at least the Cat 2 ILS 36 right at Austin has even the published missed approach is straight ahead to 1,000 and then a right turn up to 3,000.
Wow. Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. No, that's good. Okay, well, we'll move on to our last commercial story then. I'm not sure who's got this one.
You know what? I'm going to give it to Andy. Let's end on a high note. I love his voice, mostly because my dog is going crazy right now. So.
Okay, right, lovely. Okay, Andy, it's with you then. Story number 11, our final story.
11 or 10? 10.
Well, it's story number 11, but we started with 0, didn't we? Because we added one in at the start. Yes.
It's the Qantas.
It's the Qantas story, yes. Absolutely.
This is from aviationsourcenews.com, and this is Qantas auctions off A330 memorabilia ahead of aircraft conversion. Australian flag carrier Qantas has held a charity auction of items from the cabin of an Airbus A330 passenger aircraft before it travels overseas to be converted into a dedicated air freighter.
Ooh.
Aviation enthusiasts were invited to an open house in Qantas's Hangar 96 at Sydney Airport on the weekend to inspect and bid on a number of items from the wide-body aircraft. Items up for grab include a bar cart, exit signs, and a business class suite to help ensure as much of the aircraft interior is reused, recycled, or repurposed as possible. The auction raised $16,300 for Qantas Pathfinders, a group of current and past Qantas staff which raises funds for Next Sense, previously the Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children. The aircraft in question has spent 15 years of safely flying passengers around Australia and overseas. This particular A330, Victor Hotel Echo Bravo Echo, or Kangaroo Valley as it was named, will shortly head to Dresden, Germany to be converted into a dedicated freighter and will return to Australia as part of the Qantas freight fleet. The conversion will be performed by EFW, that's a specialist joint venture between Airbus and ST Engineering. Conversion work will include full strip out of the cabin, so the seats, galley, toilets, etc., replacing the existing cabin floor with a large cabin door with a large freighter door, and installing a cargo handling system. Qantas Executive Manager of Freight, Katrina Larrett, said the auction was a fun way to offer enthusiasts their own piece of Qantas history and a creative way to demonstrate Qantas's commitment to cutting waste to landfill. We're really pleased to give people this unique chance to own a piece of Qantas history and raise money for a great charity. It's also a nice way to highlight our commitment to minimising waste as part of our sustainability focus, and that's a very important part of all airlines these days. Kangaroo Valley has done us proud by carrying millions of passengers safely around Australia, Asia and the Pacific for 15 years. In its new adventure as a dedicated freighter, it will carry tons of imports and exports from fresh flowers and live seafood to thousands of e-commerce parcels and packages. Once converted, the A330 will be able to carry up to 50 tons of freight on each flight, and the Qantas Group is steadily renewing its domestic and international fleet with orders and purchase rights for almost 300 aircraft. 11 new aircraft are scheduled to arrive in 2023 alone. The new arrivals will see some older passenger aircraft, including 2 A330s, converted into freighters to help meet increased demand for air cargo that has been fueled by a sustained increase in e-commerce. Qantas Freight currently operates a fleet of 18 aircraft, and the first of an additional 6 A321 cargo freighters are scheduled to arrive early next year. A second A330 is currently undergoing passenger-to-freight conversion and is scheduled to join the dedicated Australian Post Freight fleet from later this year. There we go.
Wow.
I like Carlos's note on that.
Yes, indeed, and I think that's very, very true, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yes.
I've just tried. So he's actually at. I don't know if Armando's back, but I'm trying to save a file that he's sent me. So just bear with me a moment, because it's. We know he likes to collect aircraft bits and pieces, and I think it's fair to say that he's got, because one of the things that I quite like, I've got one here as well. They got an exit sign, and I've got one from 7-4 that was very kindly sent to us from the plane reclaimers guys.
But I think the problem with this story is that they aviationsourcenews.com published that it was $16,300 raised for Qantas Pathfinders. So now Gemma knows exactly
how much it was. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I'm sure he told her it was 1,600.
Yeah, probably not a lot, I think, to be fair. So this is the video Carlos has just sent. He's obviously listening to us while he's doing the radio. I have many questions about that. So here we are. We've got the light look, turning on the light. So that's one item that he's got from there. He turns that off a few times. There we go. Lovely. I'm loving this NAS drive, by the way. Yeah, there we go. Look, he's even got like the seatbelt seat, and the no smoking, and then obviously we've got the 777-200 window that he's had for a while. There you go. Look, honestly, and it all lights up. Gotta love it, haven't you? Bless him. Well, that's pretty much it for the commercial stories this week. We've had some good discussions, I think, actually, haven't we? We were going so long, we had to cut some. But the good news is, don't panic, Mr. Warner. We've left the military well alone. So Armando, if I could lead you to sort of lead into what's next.
Well, we would never cut the military. That's not a budget cut. We're not the government. Matt, hit the button.
Love that.
Bogies 135, 50, Angel 16, heading 340. Okay. 100 St. Bogies.
All right. Well, the theme song for this story should be, I don't want to be your friend. A Night to Remember, 1989. Cyndi Lauper, of course. Listen, what is going on with all these balloons? What I would love to.
Oh, is there something going on? Is there? Oh, I hadn't noticed.
It's so silly. I wanted to address it, right? Because it is military. There's military aircraft shooting balloons out of the sky. Here's Armando's hot take on this, right? Which is a new segment of the military portion. This has been going on. Well, in
a
modern
number
era,
of years, yeah.
for at least a decade. Listen, balloons, aerial surveillance from balloons has been going on since the Montgolfier brothers. So this goes all the way back to the 1800s. None of this is new. Many countries use balloons for surveillance, for weather. So what exactly is going on? Why use balloons? A lot of people have been asking. There's something to be said about proximity. And none of this is all open source. You could go to many intelligence geeks, right? Is that a thing? AvGeeks, intelligence geeks.
Very much so, yes.
If you go to some of the scientific websites, you know that one of the pillars of intelligence gathering information on your adversary's capabilities, one of those is imagery, right? That's probably the one that we're most used to in the movies, where you see Tom Cruise and the Minority Report, and there's aerial surveillance, right? So some of these sensors can only work to the fidelity that you want them to work to from a closer proximity. So there was a conversation, and even I said it. Well, the government said it also. So just kind of toting the government line, which was that there's nothing that these balloons are gaining that they can't already get from their satellites. Now, the Chinese satellite systems are very capable, although the U.S. intelligence community is probably reevaluating how capable they are if they're using these balloons. But obviously, if you are closer to something, so if you can fly a balloon with an imagery sensor suite at 40,000 feet, as opposed to however many miles up in the sky, 3 miles up in the sky, you're going to get better fidelity on those pictures. Another part of intelligence is signals intelligence. And we've actually talked about it on this show because there's numerous military aircraft that are outfitted with signals intelligence equipment. The reason we have aircraft, U.S. military aircraft, foreign military aircraft, UK military aircraft with signal suites is so you can get closer to the thing that you're trying to collect on. If you were able to fly a balloon over somebody else's sovereign territory, you're able to get, within just a couple miles. First of all, you're over their territory. You're at anywhere between 20 and 80,000 feet, which, if you think about the line of sight distance between a radio and a transmitter, or a radio and a receiver, a transmitter and receiver, is not very much. So you could have a signals collection suite on one of these balloons. That's probably what they were doing. But even from some commercial applications, so like the DC-3 that I used to fly was government and intelligence concepts with commercial applications. So we had a suite of not signals intelligence, because you can't do that domestically, internally, but we had a suite of wide area motion imagery, hyperspectral imagery. These are all sensors that, in order to get the highest fidelity data, we had to fly low. So that's probably what these balloons were doing. They were collecting intelligence as much as they could based on the weather patterns, and they were doing it by proximity. So why, Armando's hot take again, why was this happening? I think, based on looking at some analysis in the U.S. intelligence community, that it was probably just a probe, just a test from the Chinese to seek out what the political response, what the public response was going to be to something like this happening. Now, I saw a couple days ago that the Chinese in a conference said that the U.S. they had launched balloons. Now, this is unlikely, and I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting here in the U.S., but this is highly unlikely because we have one advantage that the Chinese don't. We have bases that are close to them. We have bases in the Philippines. We have bases in Japan. We have bases that are close enough that we can fly aircraft where we don't have to fly balloons over their airspace. Additionally, the Chinese don't have that kind of access to us, right? So they can't just come fly off the coast of the U.S. and collect signals over Montana. So it is unlikely that the U.S. has been flying balloons over China. Also, common practice. The Russians, there was just recently some articles that just this week, this is just in the past 10 days, the Russians have been flying balloons over Moldova. That closed down their airspace. The Russians flew a balloon that was shot down in Ukraine last week. So this is a common practice. This is all just mass hysteria. It's all, again, back to the media. It just happens to be in the media. It's been going on for years. I can't believe how much the media is shaping our policy and decision making right now, but I guess that, I don't know, we don't have a choice, but that's what's happening with these balloons. Obviously now the government has to take action. The Biden administration came out and said they're going to evaluate this. They're going to come up with a 4-step plan of action to basically evaluate these kinds of incursions into our sovereign airspace. But is it a big deal? I don't know, probably not.
I mean, I guess in reality, I mean, this is something that's perhaps been going on for a while. Is it something that's been sort of like a blind eye has been turned to, perhaps?
It's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't hear about it here, but then that doesn't necessarily mean it's not taking place here, I guess.
Yeah, loads of countries use them, as Armando said. They fly all over the place.
Yeah. No, that's fair. But I mean, is there a particular reason why it's sort of making the headlines at the moment? I mean, is it just perhaps because more people have seen said balloon this time round, and so it was difficult to sort of keep it under wraps? Maybe, I don't know.
Well, the world's in a heightened state as well, isn't it? With war in Ukraine and China rising as they are. So again, media hype doesn't help.
Yeah, there's also there's a great podcast called Intelligence Matters. It's Michael Morrell. It's not aviation based. I know.
What?
I know.
What?
It is one of the other podcasts that I listen to, and they just recently had an analyst on there from the CIA that kind of explained the political sensitivities and kind of the why we're in this sort of tit for tat kind of volatile state with China right now. These political plays, there's a lot of Taiwan because we say the U.S. says we're going to defend Taiwan. Are they testing? Is China testing the waters on that kind of resolve? Yeah, there's a lot of political things that are happening in the background to this, and I think it does. You guys are right. Like, it just happens to be more, the public is more aware of these things now.
Yes, okay. So speaking of lovers of military, by the way, Armando, your biggest fan, Mr. Jonathan Warner, he's just sent us a photograph. He's made himself very at home, shall we say, while he's watching the military part of the show there. He's got his tablet in front of him so he can join in the fun in the chat room. He's got a very nice little, what looks like a pale ale there, next to a Cadbury's cream egg. I mean, and then you on the big screen at the foot of the bed there. I hope you're comfortable. I hope you took your shoes off if you're climbing into bed with them.
Well, I know as soon as the military stinger started playing, I'm sure he was singing "At Last."
You're right. Yes, true.
2003, Cyndi Lauper.
Let's just all not get too comfortable in Jonathan Warner's bed.
Oh, okay. No, no, fair enough. Yes, absolutely. Bit cosy all of a sudden. Crowded, I think, is another word for it. Okay.
Speaking of China,
yes.
Andy, you got the next one.
Here we go. So next up, this is from EurasianTimes.com. Boeing Saab Red Hawk aircraft on way to emerge as a critical platform for USAF to battle China's J-20 and Russia's Su-57 fighters. The training aircraft of the US Air Force is set to be transformed as defense manufacturers Boeing and Saab are entering the final stages of engineering and development of the T-7A Red Hawk, following which the aircraft will finally be ready for production. In December 2022, media reports indicated that the production of the new T-7A Red Hawk training jet for the Air Force has been delayed until 2024 due to design and testing issues. Pre-production flight testing is planned for this year. The service intends to purchase 46 simulators, 351 Red Hawk aircraft, and ground equipment. Combat training for the USAF is transitioning to a digital age. The existing trainers of the service, the T-38 Talons, will eventually be replaced by a fleet of Red Hawks. For the Red Hawks, using digital design approaches has already resulted in 80% reduction in assembly time, enabling the production of more planes in lesser time. The Red Hawk development process was also quicker than comparable land-based vehicles, taking less than 3 years from the concept stage to the first flight. The maintenance-conscious design of the Red Hawk is noteworthy. 4 workers can completely replace the engine in half a day. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
There's just one fueling point within reach of the maintenance control panel, and high wings give upright access to inspection points. In addition, during assembly, half of the aircraft's CPU slots will be left empty, leaving the other half free for later modifications. The Red Hawk is the first Air Force aircraft to use digital design tools, enabling it to go from computer screen to the first flight in just 36 months. Digital design, agile software, and digital engineering technologies have significantly reduced the time between developing the aircraft and getting it ready for aerial testing. The open architecture software of the T-7A will make it particularly adaptable to its predecessors once it is in service, allowing it to add new capabilities and training components to keep up with the modernization of the Air Force. However, the most noteworthy feature of this cutting-edge trainer is that this aircraft will be equipped to dogfight Chinese and Russian fighter jets, as noted by Eurasian Times. This is a one-of-a-kind experiment undertaken by the USAF in the era of digital combat. The T-7A poses a severe challenge as an aggressor aircraft due to its small size, making it exceedingly difficult to spot during combat within visual range. Further, locating the aircraft will become difficult due to the thrust and design, which will give the plane considerable agility. According to reports, the USAF may view the T-7A as a viable next-generation aggressor platform, as there is an increasing need for more adversary support for the fifth-generation stealth fighters who are not challenged by small formations of fighters. In addition, it has been noted by experts that using fifth-generation aircraft against other fifth-generation fighters for basic air-to-air training is incredibly inefficient and financially unviable. This essentially lends more credence to the idea of a next-generation trainer aircraft that could train USAF pilots to prepare against Chinese J-20s or the Russian Su-57. The comparison of the Red Hawk trainer with the US F-16 fighter jet is worth underlining, as the latter is one of the best fighter jets in the world and has a rich history of combat and dog fighting. I don't even know what this aircraft looks like.
And do you know, it's one of the few things where we haven't been sent a picture by Jonathan Warner either. So.
Oh. I'm sure give it to the end. Now, the T7 isn't in production yet. I mean, there's a couple like prototype models. So it's unlikely that Jonathan Warner has gotten to photograph one of these in person.
Right, fair enough.
Basically, it looks as if F-16 and F-18 had a baby. So it's a little bit like that. So it's smaller. It's about the size of an F-16. What is impressive about this is a trainer aircraft. It was bought as a trainer aircraft, but it was bought as the IKEA of trainer aircraft. So it's very modular. It's amazing to me what we can do with technology and the technological process of designing, building an aircraft. And they have obviously thought, and this is probably why they won the contract, but they have thought about the future of this aircraft. So in the past, we had trainers like the A37, the T38, not the A37, the T37, the T38. In modern times, at least, there was many trainers before that. But they were kind of one-trick ponies. The T38 was similar to the F5, so it had some air-to-air fighter capability. But now we have the technology, because there's so much software in it, that it can be a true multi-role, multi-mission aircraft. The Europeans have actually been doing this for a while. When you're talking about the Saab aircraft and the French fighter aircraft, they've kind of gone down this road of modularity, where you don't have to come up with all kinds of different versions. You don't have to do these major modifications to the aircraft, and the A37 actually is a great example of a training aircraft having been adapted into a combat role. That's what this story is about. Is basically they designed this aircraft quickly and efficiently to have more applicability than just as a trainer aircraft, to the point where it can actually take on some of the 5th generation fighters with its capabilities. So that's why the story's in there. Very impressive. And, this kind of stuff flows into commercial aviation. So as we see, further down the line, we may see further or faster development of commercial aircraft kind of based on proven concepts like they do with
I really like the idea of leaving CPU slots to upgrade later. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's been really thought about, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Haven't we talked about that? Like the Airbus? What is the guts of the system? The guts of the software is probably some 1980-something Linux-based software.
Yeah, it's based on a Motorola chip that powered the Commodore 64. That's how old it is.
Are you actually serious?
Yeah.
Oh my god, really?
Motorola 6800, 68,000, something like that chipset. But it's still... that chipset's still in production, and they are still finding ways to eke out every bit they can from it. It's quite impressive. What you can do when you get into it.
Is that a bit like with the mission, like the space missions and stuff? Because I remember if you go back 10, 15 years, I remember there being a plea put out for anyone who had any DX266 chips kicking around, because that's what the spaceships, if you like, the software, everything had all been tested on those chips, and so when the ones that they got were getting a bit sort of thin on the ground, that was, they put out a plea for anybody who got one kicking around. I had a box of 5 of them, of all things. They actually paid me $500 for those 5 chips. That's how desperate they were for them.
Chips flew in the space program. There you go.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it like that. Actually, that was like a claim, a random claim to fame on that one. But
I think that makes you an astronaut.
Yeah, right. Does it? Oh God, really? What a terrifying thought.
Astro engineer. As far as that?
Sure, I'll take it. If I can put it on my CV right now, I'm looking for work. Does that I'll take it. I'll definitely take it. Yeah.
Well, we can put it on your PTUK business cards.
Lovely. Okay. Yeah, I'll ask the. Yes, as I say, unexpectedly, I've discovered a strong link with a form of aviation. In the fact that, knowing my luck, it was probably in one of the test units that sort of burnt up the second they tested it. But anyway, one of those. But mind you, I had 5 chances. 5 chances they had, so there we go. But and I guess it's the same thing, is it, Andy? Because it's been successfully type rated in this particular aircraft, so they're not keen to move away from that particular chipset because they know it works and they know that it's been approved, if you like.
It's too big of a modification. If you do that, then you have to recertify the whole thing.
Recertify the whole thing, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess that is the case, like perhaps with some of the newer, maybe the sort of the 380s perhaps are using a different chipset.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's like, what, you're talking a MacBook compared to a Spectrum,
Right, yeah, okay, yeah, no, fair.
Chalk and cheese,
yeah.
Massive difference.
Yeah, no, cool. Yeah, indeed. Finally, a part of aviation I almost understand. This is a glorious moment. What else have you got for us, Armando?
We've got 2 more stories. This next one's a bit of a sad story. It's still developing. Just happened yesterday. So there was a UH-60 Black Hawk that had a mishap. It crashed yesterday near Huntsville, Alabama, in Madison County. There were no survivors from this. What was in a really, really kind of sad and heart-wrenching about this is that footage from both the crash and as the aircraft was falling out of the sky has surfaced in social media and in the national news. But the Black Hawk crashed Alabama Highway 53. The troopers were there pretty quickly, the Alabama State Troopers. It was obvious that there were no survivors. The highway was closed. It looked like a IFR kind of day, an IMC kind of day. This is an area of Alabama that is very intense with helicopter training. This particular helicopter belonged to the Tennessee National Guard, the Army National Guard, kind of like your terrestrial army over there. So it belonged to the Guard, and whatever it is that happened was a mishap that was unrecoverable. The way that the aircraft was falling from the sky, from what I saw from the videos, it was out of control, and fell from a pretty significant height. So very sad. I know my heart goes out to the Tennessee Guard, the families, the crews, the people that work with this individuals. But really sad story. We'll try to follow up on it and see if something comes out of it. But yeah, Jonathan Warther in the chat room says, why do people feel the need to rush to send crash footage to the media? I couldn't agree more. This is so
is it
it's just heartbreaking.
I mean, again, forgive my naivety here. Is this is it because some of these media outlets are paying for it, maybe?
It could be. I think it's a two-way street. I think people are used to it now. They capture something like this and they see perhaps an opportunity to capitalize on it. I don't know. That's really like a sad view on life, and I hope that's not what they're thinking first. I hope they're thinking that they just want to get the footage out there. But why the rush? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, these people have families. Their units are really tight. Their units are like families. It's just it's terrible. But this one, when I watched the footage, I was just a little.
Yeah, Sam's saying the UH-60 is a fantastic instrument platform, so this is befuddling.
Yeah, whatever. No, I agree with that. That the 60, I've never piloted a Black Hawk, but I've ridden in plenty of them, and it really is an incredibly capable platform, still being produced today. It whatever error happened, it was a catastrophic not error, whatever circumstances were catastrophic, where the aircraft was most definitely out of control when it was coming out of the sky.
And before we move on, I'll just mention Jonathan's comment here. He's saying the same happened at Shoreham footage from next to where I was stood. As I say, regular listeners will know that Mr. Warner was actually there at the time of the Shoreham incident, and he said it was online before I even got home that day, then all over the front pages. Which is sort of a very, very, very. Yeah, I don't know. That's the bit that worries about me. That's what worries me the most about all of this, as you're saying there, Armando. Is this like the rush to be the person whose name is appearing on the media because you have this footage is almost sort of going out the window in terms of sparing a thought for the loved ones of the people involved in this, and that I think is what sort of hurts my heart more than anything else, really, because however shocking, amazing is perhaps another word, I don't know, however exciting access to this footage is, incidents like this have involved people losing their lives. And I we need to sort of get back to caring about each other, I think, going forward. I think that's what we need to do. We need to love each other a little bit more than I think we do, to be honest.
Well, that's an excellent segue. We're going to go from heartbreaking to heartwarming. Matt, Andy, one of you guys want to take this next?
Matt can do it.
Okay, I've got some videos to play out, I think, on this one. This is number 4, isn't it?
It is.
So I'd be grateful if somebody else could read it. But, yeah, sorry. I can't. I'm not very good at doing the videos
and I have a surprise that's related at the end of the story.
Okay. Right. Ooh.
So this is from thedrive.com. This is Coast Guard rescue swimmer makes incredible save after huge wave. That sentence doesn't even make sense. The mouth of the Columbia River can be an extremely treacherous place for mariners. The recent videos posted by the US Coast Guard are a case in point. In it, we see just how absurdly brave coasties can be, notably those hardened by the at times very hostile seas off the Pacific Northwest. This is especially true of one rescue swimmer who faced down a huge sudden wave en route to his target and went on to still make the save. The mouth of the Columbia River separates the states of Washington and Oregon. It's a body of water notorious for its extremely powerful currents that can become too difficult for even the most experienced sailors to navigate. While conducting a routine training mission from their base in the nearby Astoria, 2 US Coast Guard aircrews aboard an MH-60T Jayhawk helicopters received a distress call from the skipper of the private vessel Sandpiper. After alerting watchstanders at a Coast Guard sector Columbia River, who ordered the launch of the incredible capable 47-foot motor lifeboats, From the station Cape Disappointment, air crews quickly found the Sandpiper being thrashed about by large waves. In the video, the Sandpiper is seen next to the mortar lifeboat. With the waves as strong as they were, rescue from the lifeboat was deemed too dangerous, so a rescue swimmer was dropped from the Jayhawk into the storm-punishing waters below. In the additional video, we can see the rescue swimmer battling the swells as they approach Sandpiper. The Coast Guard notes that the intention here was to have Sandpiper's captain also enter the water for the rescue to be performed. At least that was the plan. Suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, an absolutely huge and fast-moving wave comes barreling towards the boat and the swimmer, who was still between his drop point and the boat in peril. You can see the "oh beep" moment as the rescue swimmer stops, sees the wave and prepares to ride it out. An instant later, it engulfs the rescue swimmer and tosses the Sandpiper like a toy, capsizing it with its captain still aboard. Lo and behold, and somewhat astonishingly, the rescue swimmer was still able to safely recover the individual after the wave passed. Lifted aboard the helicopter, the individual was then flown to Coast Guard Air Station Astoria, where emergency medical services were waiting. At this time, we do not know the condition of the rescued individual, but they were carried off the helicopter without a stretcher. This story has gotten way weirder. It turns out the man that was rescued stole the boat after leaving a dead fish on the front porch of the famed house in Astoria that was used in the 80s smash hits Goonies. Brilliant. Another Cyndi Lauper reference there.
Hey, you got it! 1985, The Goonies are good enough. Cyndi Lauper. She was... actually, I think Steven Spielberg actually made her the musical director of the Goonies for a little bit. So
goodness me,
how about that? We got Cyndi Lauper in through the whole show.
Yeah, that's impressive. I'll give you that. Yeah, I will give you that.
Yeah, amazing. This rescue swimmer. I have not verified this. I do believe this was the rescue swimmer's first save. It was a brand new rescue swimmer.
Oh well, if I was them, I'd be quitting.
Yeah. I've had enough already.
Something else.
Well, that's what you said after your first landing in the Airbus after training, right? You're like, well, I'll take that one. I'm going to retire.
If only I'd done that 12, 13 years ago. Yeah.
A bit late now. As I say, this is the thing. I mean, I played it 2 or 3 times while you were reading that, and I'm going to play it one more time. That wave as it hits you, I mean, it just blowing my mind. Look, whoa, here it comes, wallop. The amazing thing about that is it does a full roll and then ends up the right way up the boat. Which is stunning, really, isn't it? It's absolutely stunning. Anyway, there we go. I could watch that for ages.
Power of the sea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a valuable lesson there to never underestimate the water. I think that's my takeaway from that, certainly. Well, my goodness me, we have romped through all the stories. That leaves us with one little job left to do. Armando, if you don't have any objections, what I'd like to do is give those who are listening on to the show afterwards the opportunity to get some questions in about your corporate aviation program so that they can get in touch. You can do that in all the usual ways. I'll just whiz through some of them now with you. It is +44 757 224 9166. If you've got questions for Armando in next week's show, all being well, I don't know whichever show Armando is able to make next, then I think we'll take that as an opportunity to have a good discussion about the corporate aviation show. And any questions you've got for Armando, you can send them in on that number. We've also got our email address. That's probably the other thing to do. Send them in, please, to email. It's podcast@planetalkinguk.com. That's podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Or if you're able to join us for the live, then you can pop them in the chat room. And we're running out of time rapidly there, and I don't want to rush what I think could be a very interesting discussion when we could save it for another day, if that's all right with you. That leaves us with one other task, if that's okay, and it's the small matter of the Caption This competition, which we like to do most weeks. We've only got time for sort of like 4 or 5, but there were some funny options we got. Andy, perhaps you could describe the photograph that we shared on our social media for the Caption This week on Facebook. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can. This just going to test my grain knowledge. I believe that's an F-35.
Ooh,
Go on, correct, sir.
That's impressive. Well done, Andy. I'm very impressed.
It's not the VTOL one either. I don't know. It's a F-35 with drawing pins attached under the wings. That's the best way to describe it.
Drawing pins. For our American listeners, those are push pins.
Push pins, right.
We don't know what I don't know what drawing pins are, but
they're drawing pins.
They're drawing pins. They don't need any. Although, admittedly, they're usually the round brass tack, aren't they? Without the plastic head.
You pin your drawings to the wall with them.
Indeed, absolutely.
You push them into the wall.
Oh dear, Rod.
I mean, usually only if it's like, plasterboard or something. I think you'd struggle to push it through the plaster, certainly. Yeah, we've got some great options. Do feel free to pop them in the chat room. We'll come to those in a moment. Perhaps I could trouble someone to go through some of the options that we received. I'll start with the first one. Bob says tactical fighter. I love that.
John says, Queen Elizabeth F-35 Squadron B a call. Secrets come out as a documentary team show how they play pin the tail on the donkey.
Bill says, Lockheed Moron Engineering misunderstood the brief to develop a tachyon weapon.
I quite like that one. Gordon Bennett, I'm sure that's his real name, says the US Air Force's new anti-balloon missile being tested over Alaska. According to the Pentagon, it has pinpoint accuracy.
Bill says the F-35 demonstrating new weapons to pin down opponents.
Oh dear. Oh
yeah, we've got a couple in the chat room. We've got Captain Ridiculous Wits says our military attacks. Attacks.
Let's see what you did there. Yeah. And what else have we got? It's Richard Adams is saying it's a Mach 2 balloon popper. Very important, obviously, given the stories that we've had this week.
So Sam Dawson has one. I'm going to do in my pilot voice, which is
splash one, pop one.
Yeah, didn't get that. Right, lovely. Mark is saying we have new missiles for the balloons. I think that's very much it's very much the topic of the week. It has to be said.
Oh, Sam's got another one. She-Bop. Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, impressive stuff. And then Captain Ridiculous Wits will finish with this one. It says, all right, men, there's a balloon up there. For now, let's go put a pin in it. That'll do for this week. As I say, we are rapidly running out of time. Carlos will hopefully post another photograph around about the middle of the week next week. Make sure you find it on social media and get stuck in. If you would like to find us, I've done the email and everything already. If you would like to take a look at our social media, all you need to do is search either Facebook, Instagram or Twitter for the handle Plain Talking UK, all as one word. You'll find all the details you need there. And if you'd like to perhaps join in on the fun, our wonderful website, it's www.plaintalkinguk.com. That's www.plaintalkinguk.com. On there you'll also find links to our Patreon and our PayPal if you'd like to perhaps make a small donation towards the running of the show. You'll also find on there a link to our Amazon. It's a special Amazon link. You can just do your normal Amazon shopping and we receive a small advertising referral fee, so you can contribute towards the show without having to spend money, which I know we're all finding very difficult to get our hands on at the moment, especially during this cost of living crisis. Those are the ways to get in touch with the show. That's it. I think we got away with it, didn't we? We are literally coming up on 2 hours. Andy, thank you so very much for joining us. What have you got on the cards for the next sort of like couple of weeks?
Oh, sitting at home, working in my office, wanting to go flying.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fun. And I suspect, to be honest with you, Armando, you would absolutely kill for that, to just be sat in your office and not flying, doing a few bits just for a change.
That is no joke. I think I am tomorrow. In Naples in the Hawker. Monday, in South Carolina in a Pilatus. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I'm on the Hawker in Texas. Somewhere in between there, I'll probably fly the Cub.
Wow, okay, you'll squeeze in a little bit of GA in there somewhere, will you? Well done, yes.
Fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm not sort of really, I don't know what I'm doing next week, just working and looking for another job, which is going to be fun. If, as I say, get in touch with the show in all the usual ways. We'll hopefully have a bit of a discussion with any questions you've got for Armando and anyone else we can perhaps try and put together for a little bit of a follow-up on the corporate aviation special that Armando very kindly did for us last week. But that is pretty much it for this week. Thanks to everyone for joining me. Thanks to Andy for joining us, and also for Armando for rushing his ass off to get himself over here in time. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you all next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.